Hello, third grade, and welcome to Unit 3, Week 1. I hope you had a restful break. Let's jump right in and go over our vocabulary words for this week. Your first word is the word disbelief. So when you're in disbelief, you feel that something is not true, that it can't possibly be true. So if you're looking at an assignment that you did and you got a grade that was much, much better than you thought you were going to get, you're looking at it in disbelief or even in amazement at that point. So disbelief is when you're looking at something and you think that it can't possibly be true. Your next word is the word fabulous. To be fabulous is to be wonderful or excellent. So an example sentence here is, I will look even more fabulous with you on my wing. And you're going to see this reference in this story. It'll make a lot more sense when you read it there. So something that's fabulous is something that's really wonderful or excellent, something that looks amazing. So you can say that you went to a play and the way they set up the background of the play was fabulous. It was colorful and it was exciting. It had all sorts of amazing things to look at. Your next word is the word dismay. Dismay is a worried or shocked feeling. So you can say they looked with dismay for their missing pet. So when you're really worried, you're kind of afraid, you're in shock. Dismay is a good word to use to describe that feeling. When something is offered, it's given or it's suggested. So if you offer an opinion, you are making a suggestion, right? You're sharing your thoughts or you're offering your thoughts. Or if you offer someone some of your lunch, you're sharing with them. You can offer your neighbors maybe some desserts that you made. Your next word is the word watchful. So a watchful person is someone who watches or looks very carefully. So remember, we're talking over here, our word watchful has a suffix in it. We've talked about suffixes. It has the word full. So someone who's watching very, very carefully. So an example sentence here is, the watchful father witnessed his child try to walk. So the watchful father, right? The dad is watching really, really carefully as his little baby is trying to walk for the first time. Your next word is the word splendid. Now, when something is splendid, it's very beautiful or it's very good. So splendid is a synonym, right? It's a word that has a similar meaning to the word good or beautiful. So Martina is going to be the main character of our weekly story this week. Martina tried not to stare at his splendid shoes. Or you can say that our camping trip was splendid, right? It was beautiful, it was good. We went to a location that was really nice. Your next word is the word features. Now, features are things that are noticeable about something. So if you're talking about animals, we can talk about its physical features, right? We're talking about the physical features of a bird. We're talking about its wings or its claws or its beak. These are things that stand out that you notice. And our last word for this week is the word unique. So something that is unique is unusual, it's special, it's one of a kind. It's not something that's common. It's not something you see all the time. So the example sentence here is, the mouse's excellent hearing made it unique. Now pay attention to those words because they're going to show up in our story. Our story this week is a lot of fun. It's very entertaining. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Our spelling words for this week are all focusing on the R-controlled vowel sound, the sound. So the sound is made either with ER, IR, or UR. And we're going to see it come through in all of our spelling words. Now, when we're talking about R-controlled vowels, we're talking about words that have a vowel and then the letter R immediately after it. Now, when we have those combinations, it's not just saying R like we usually would when we say run or stretch, where it's kind of like a softer R sound. When you have R-controlled words, they have a strong R sound. They say makes a strong R sound. So think of like a pirate, right? So they say R all the time. So you're going to be hearing that strong R sound throughout the words that we have today. So we have the word whirl, third, girls, firm, fern. Now, fern is a plant, in case you're not sure. Herds, stern, serve, hurt, nurse, turns, learn, pearl, word, world, stretch, thick, whales, perfect, Thursday. So you can hear that strong sound throughout all of these words. Now let's get into our language arts and our grammar notes for this week. You're going to see these pop up throughout your practice book and your grammar packets. So please make sure you come back and you rewatch these videos when you're doing your work to make sure that you're familiar with everything. You also do have access to this notes document, so you can always open this up. It's in our shared folder, and you can review all of these notes. Now, the first thing we're going to cover are synonyms. So synonyms are words that have the same or similar meaning to another word. Synonyms don't need to be just one word. They can have more than one word in them, because when you're describing something, sometimes you need more than one word. So here are some common synonyms that you guys use all the time. So large, big, huge, gigantic, those words are all synonyms. They have similar meanings. So if I say tiny, little, not big, small, all of those, again, same meanings or similar meanings. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but those meanings have to be close to each other. We also have the word fearless or unafraid or not scared. Those are all synonyms. Or there's nothing inside. Again, all synonyms. They give the same kind of meaning, but we're saying it in different ways. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about are contractions. Contractions are basically when we take two words and we put them together to make a shorter version and turn it into just one word. Now, what usually happens, the rule most of the time, is that the second word is the word that's changed and that the first word generally stays the same. There are some exceptions to this rule that we're going to go over, but usually what happens is the second word is the word that's shortened and an apostrophe is used in place of the letters that are taken out. So when we're combining words with the word not, like do not becomes don't. So what we're going to do is we're going to take out the N from not, and we're going to replace that, we're going to take out the O from not, and we're going to replace that with an apostrophe. So do not becomes D-O-N apostrophe T to take the place of that missing O. Now, we have the words cannot and will not that don't exactly follow this rule. Now, cannot, because it has an N at the end of can and an N at the beginning of not, we're going to take off one of those N's, and we're going to take off the O from not. So cannot becomes can't, C-A-N with one N and then apostrophe T. The apostrophe, again, is taking the place of that O. So cannot becomes can't. Now, when we're putting together will not, we don't say willn't. This is another exception. Will not becomes won't. Now, this is a change that goes all the way back to the 16th century, where linguists agreed that they're not going to change, that they're going to change the word will to would instead and modify it so that when they write it, it becomes the word won't. This goes back a very, very long time. Don't worry about it. Just remember that will not, when you create the contraction there, becomes won't. Now, the other ones follow the regular rule where you're just taking out letters from that second word and that the first word stays together or stays intact. So she will becomes she'll. We're taking out the WI and we're going to replace the WI with an apostrophe and we're keeping the LL. So she stays the same, apostrophe LL, she'll. I am becomes I'm. We're taking out the A in the word am. We're replacing that with an apostrophe. He is or she is will also have just the I taken out and replaced with an apostrophe, and we're keeping the S. So he is becomes he's, or she is would become she's. When we're combining words with the word are, so if I say you are is going to become your. So we're taking out that A in the word are. We're going to replace it with an apostrophe and then keep the rest of the letters. So it's going to become apostrophe RE. So you, Y-O-U apostrophe R-E becomes your. All right, the next bit of our notes is going to be talking about verbs. Now we're going to be talking about a couple different things when it comes to verbs. Now, before we begin that, you need to remember that a complete sentence has two parts. It has a subject and it has a predicate. The subject is the who part of the sentence, and the predicate is the what. So the predicate is where you're going to find the verb in your sentence. It's the part of the sentence that tells you what the subject is or does. So the subject, remember, is the who. So a verb tells you what the subject is or does. To find the verb, ask, what does the sentence tell us that the subject is or does? So an action verb, specifically when we're talking about action verbs, we're talking about what the subject does, something they are actively doing. Now, these can be feelings or actions, and they're not necessarily something you can always see. So I'm going to go through a couple example sentences where I put the verb in bold so that you can see it. I learned bears hibernate in the winter. So learned is what I did. So I is the subject. I learned bears hibernate in the winter. So learned is going to be my verb. She wrote a beautiful poem in class. Wrote is what she did, right? That was the action. So that's going to be my action verb. If I say the bird flaps its wings quickly, what's the bird doing with its wings? It is flapping them. So flaps is going to be my verb over here. If I say we made a special presentation, made is going to be my action verb. It's what we did. We made that presentation. Now, remember, a verb tells you what the subject is or does. So if I say he is a brilliant scientist, is going to be my verb here. If I say they are very happy today, are is going to be my verb there as well. If I say she thought about her best friend, thought is what she's doing, right? She's thinking about them. So that's going to be the verb. I worried about the test this week. So worried is what I am doing. We walked to the park. The grapes tasted so sweet. The students rushed out to lunch, or I love playing checkers with my sister. So love is going to be my verb here. Rushed is my verb in the previous sentence, and so on. You can go ahead and review them. Go ahead and pause the video if you like and reread the sentences to get more familiar with them. These are going to show up in your work packets this week, so please pay extra close attention to them. Now, the last part of our notes is going to be about quotation marks and colons. So quotation marks look like these double commas or double apostrophes that go around certain words. And colons are your two dots that are sitting on top of each other. And we're going to go through and talk about what each one of those are. Now, we use quotation marks to show when someone is speaking. So we put those quotation marks, right, the things that look like double apostrophes, at the beginning of what someone is saying and at the end of what someone is saying. So what they're basically doing is these quotation marks are sandwiching the words in between, right? They're holding the words in between. And we know that everything that's in between those quotation marks are the exact words that somebody else said. Now, the end punctuation will always go inside the quotation mark. So you're going to put the end punctuation, whether it's a comma or a period or a question mark or an exclamation mark first, and then you're going to put the ending quotation marks to show that that's the end of what somebody said. Now, a colon is used when we're writing the time, and we use it to separate the hour part of the time from the minute part of the time. So if I say 10:15, I'm going to have number 10 and then a colon and then the number 15. Or if I say 3:30, it's going to be 3:30. If I say 1 o'clock, it's going to be 1 colon and then the 00 to show that it's just 1 o'clock and no minutes have passed. So remember, a colon looks like those two dots that are sitting on top of each other. Now, I put 3 example sentences here for us to review, and one of them has quotation marks and it has colons in it. So the first one says, I love playing tag at recess, said Sarah. So you can see that the quotation marks go before the words that she said. And then we have our end punctuation, which is that comma. And then we have the closing quotation marks afterwards. And then the final words to tell us who was saying those words. So I love playing tag at recess. Those are the words, those quotation marks tell us that those are the words that Sarah said. The next one says, does class start at 8 or 8:30? I asked. So I'm going to open my quotation marks. and I'm going to put in the words, does class start at 8 or 8:30? So 8:00, and then 8:30 is 8:30. I put my question mark, right, my end punctuation, and then I close my quotation marks. So when you open your quotation marks, that's going to be where you start putting in the words that someone is saying. And when you close the quotation marks, you're putting it at the end of the words that that person said. And our last sentence says, let's go to the park after school, Dad suggested. So I open the quotation marks. I put in the words that Dad said after that. And then I'm going to close, I'm going to add my end punctuation and then close my quotation marks. So notice in all of these, the punctuation goes inside the quotation mark. So that's going to take us to the end of our language arts notes. Now we're going to jump into our literature anthology, and we're going to be reading the story called Martina the Beautiful Cockroach. And this is a folk tale from Cuba, and it's a lot of fun. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it.
Genre, folktale. Essential question. What makes different animals unique? Read about Martina. Find out how she chooses among her unique admirers. Martina, the Beautiful Cockroach, a Cuban folktale. Retold by Carmen Agra Didi. Illustrated by Michael Austin. Martina Josefina Catalina Cucaracha was a beautiful cockroach. She lived in a cozy street lamp in old Havana with her big, lovable family. Now that Martina was 21 days old, she was ready to give her leg in marriage. The Cucaracha household was crawling with excitement. Every señora in the family had something to offer. Tia Cuca gave her una peñada, a seashell comb. Mama gave her una mantilla, a lace shawl. But Abuela, her Cuban grandmother, gave her un consejo increíble, some shocking advice. You want me to do what? Martina was aghast. You are a beautiful cockroach, said Abuela. Finding husbands to choose from will be easy. Picking the right one could be tricky. But, stammered Martina, how will spilling coffee on a suitor's shoes help me find a good husband? Her grandmother smiled. It will make him angry. Then you'll know how he will speak to you when he loses his temper. Trust me, Martina, the coffee test never fails. Martina wasn't so sure. Meanwhile, Papa sent El Perico, the parrot, to spread the word. Soon all Havana, from the busy sidewalks of El Prado to El Moro Castle, was abuzz with the news. Martina, the beautiful cockroach, was ready to choose a husband. As was the custom, Martina would greet her suitors from the balcony, under her family's many watchful eyes. Daintily she sat down and crossed her legs, and crossed her legs, and crossed her legs. She didn't have long to wait. Don Gallo, the rooster, strutted up first. Martina tried not to stare at his splendid shoes. Keeping one eye on his reflection, Don Gallo greeted her with a sweeping bow. Caramba! You really are a beautiful cockroach. I will look even more fabulous with you on my wing. With that, he leaned forward and crooned, Martina Josefina Catalina Cucaracha, beautiful muchacha, won't you be my wife? Martina hesitated only for an instant. Coffee, senor? Right on cue, Abuela appeared. With a quick glance at her grandmother, Martina nervously splattered coffee onto the rooster's spotless shoes. Oh my, she said with mock dismay. I'm all feelers today. Kiki-riki! The rooster was furious. Clumsy cockroach! I will teach you better manners when you are my wife. Martina was stunned. The coffee test had worked. A most humble offer, Signor, she said coolly, but I cannot accept. You are much too cocky for me. Stop and check. Visualize. What is the coffee test? Use the descriptions to visualize the events in the story. Don Cerdo, the pig, hoofed up next. His smell curled the little hairs on Martina's legs. What an unimaginable scent, Martina wheezed. Is it some new pig cologne? Oh no, señorita. It's the sweet aroma of my pigsty. Rotten eggs, turnip peels, stinky cheese. Don Cerdo licked his chops and sang, Martina Josefina Catalina Cucaracha, beautiful muchacha, won't you be my wife? Martina had already left in search of coffee. She wasted no time with the pig. Gronk, gronk, squealed Don Cerdo as he dabbed at the coffee on his shoes. What a tragedy for my poor loafers. He really is quite a ham, thought Martina. Calm yourself, Signor. I'll clean them for you. I'll say you will, he snorted. When you are my wife, there'll be no end to cleaning up after me. Martina rolled her eyes in disbelief. A most charming offer, Signor, she said dryly, but I must decline. You are much too boorish for me. The coffee test had saved her from yet another unsuitable suitor. Stop and check. Visualize. What happens when Martina pours coffee on the pig? Use the descriptions to visualize the events in the story. The pig was scarcely out of sight when Don Lagardo, the lizard, crept over the railing. His oily fingers brushed the little cockroach's lovely mantilla. You shouldn't sneak up on a lady like that. I don't sneak, I creep, he said, circling Martina. For some reason, this fellow really bugged her. I've had enough of creeps for one day, said Martina. Adios. But I need you. Wait. The lizard fell on one scaly knee and warbled. Martina Josefina Catalina Cucaracha, beautiful muchacha, won't you be my wife? Martina sighed. Let me see if there's any coffee left. This time she wasn't taking any chances. Martina returned with 2 cups for the lizard. Psst, psst, he spat. Don Lagardo was livid. He changed colors 3 times before he finally found his true one. And to think, he hissed, I was going to marry you. Martina stared at the lizard. You could have heard a breadcrumb drop. Food for thought, Signor, Martina said icily, but I must refuse. You are much too cold-blooded for me. When her grandmother returned to collect the day's coffee cups, Martina was still fuming. I'm going inside, Abuela. So soon? See, I'm afraid of whom I might meet next. Abuela drew Martina to the railing and pointed to the garden below. What about him? Martina looked down at the tiny brown mouse, and her cockroach heart began to beat faster. Tiki-tin, tiki-tan. Oh, Abuela, he's adorable. Where has he been? Right here all along. What do I do? Go talk to him and just be yourself. Martina handed Abuela her piñata and mantilla, then scurried down to the garden. The mouse was waiting. Tiki-tin, tiki-tan. Hola. Hello. His voice was like warm honey. My name is Perez. Hola, she whispered shyly. I'm Martina. The beautiful cockroach, he finished for her. You think I'm beautiful? The little mouse turned pink under his fur. Well, my eyes are rather weak, but I have excellent ears. I know you are strong and good, Martina Josephina Catalina Cucaracha. Then he squinted sweetly. Who cares if you are beautiful? Tiki-tin, tiki-tan. Martina, don't forget the coffee. It was Abuela. No, thought Martina, no coffee for Perez. Martina Josefina Catalina Cucaracha. Sí, Abuela. Martina knew better than to argue with her Cuban grandmother. With a heavy heart, she reached for the cup, but Perez got there first. Quick as a mouse, he splashed Café Cubano onto Martina's shoes. Now the coffee was on the other foot. Martina was too delighted to be angry. At last she'd found her perfect match. But she had to ask, how did you know about the coffee test? Perez grinned. Well, mi amor, my love, I too have a Cuban grandmother. Stop and check. Reread. Why doesn't Martina want to pour coffee on the mouse? Reread to find the answer.
All right, let's get into our next short story here in our literature anthology book. This one is an expository text, so we're going to go ahead and get started.
Genre, expository text. Compare texts. Read about why some animals are called vertebrates. Get a backbone. Most animals in the world fit in one of two groups. Some have backbones, the others do not. People, lizards, owls, frogs, and sharks all have backbones. Touch the back of your neck. That's where your backbone starts. It's a string of bones that goes all the way down your back to your tailbone. What would you be like without a backbone? You couldn't walk or sit up. You'd have to slither around like a worm or swim like an octopus. Those animals have no backbones. Backbone. A rooster is a vertebrate. Its backbone helps hold up its body. Types of vertebrates. Animals with backbones are called vertebrates. All vertebrates have backbones. However, not all vertebrates are alike. They have different features. Some are tiny, others are huge. Some swim while others fly. Vertebrates can be birds, amphibians, fish, reptiles, or mammals. Animals in each group share a unique quality that makes them special. Birds. Most birds can fly, but bees and bats can too. Some birds, like ostriches and penguins, can't fly at all. Ostriches run. Penguins walk and swim. So what makes birds special? Feathers, of course. Feathers keep birds warm. They can help birds to fly and steer through the air. The color of a bird's feathers can help it hide from predators or attract other birds. Reptiles. Lizards and snakes are reptiles. All reptiles have scales covering their bodies. Because reptiles are cold-blooded, they must live in warm places. Some snakes, turtles, and crocodiles live mostly in warm water. Some reptiles live in dry deserts. Most reptiles have low bodies, 4 short legs, and a tail. Only snakes have no legs at all. A parrot is a bird. It has feathers and a backbone. A chameleon is a reptile. It is a cold-blooded vertebrate with scaly skin. Amphibians. Amphibians spend part of their lives in water and part on land. Frogs, toads, and salamanders are amphibians. Most amphibians start out as an egg floating in water. When they hatch, they look like fish. They breathe through gills. As they grow older, they grow legs and lungs and begin to live on land. Fish. Fish are vertebrates with a special ability. They can live in water. Fish don't have lungs to breathe air. They breathe oxygen using body parts called gills. Fish have more species than any other type of vertebrate. There are about 32,000 kinds of fish. These cold-blooded animals live all over the world in rivers, streams, oceans, lakes, and ponds. Vertebrates. This chart compares animals with backbones. Animal, group, body covering, where they live, how they breathe. Animal, mouse. Group, mammal. Body covering, fur. Where they live, woodlands. How they breathe, breathe through lungs. Animal, clownfish. Group, fish. Body covering, wet scaly skin. Where they live, oceans. How they breathe, breathe through gills. Animal, frog. Group, amphibian. Body covering, smooth, moist skin. Where they live, lakes, ponds. How they breathe, breathe through gills, skin, or lungs. A frog is an amphibian. These vertebrates live in water and on land. Clownfish are vertebrates that spend their whole lives in water. Mammals. A mouse and an elephant are related. How? They are vertebrates and they are mammals. Mammals are warm-blooded animals. Most have hair or fur that covers their bodies. Their unique feature is milk. Mammal mothers feed their babies milk. All mammals have lungs to breathe air. Most live on land. Some, like whales and dolphins, live in water. Bats are the only mammals that have wings and can fly. They also sleep while hanging upside down. Look around you. The next time you see animals, think about them. Are they vertebrates? What are their special features? A mouse and an elephant look different, but they are both mammals. Both have backbones. Make connections. What one thing makes vertebrates different from other animals? How are these animals like other animals you have read about?
All right, let's get into our reading and writing workshop. And we're in Unit 3, Week 1. We're going to read The Inchworm's Tale. That's going to be our first short story. This is also a folk tale, just like Martina. And folk tales are generally fictional stories that teach us something.
Genre, folktale. Inchworm's Tale. Essential question. What makes different animals unique? Read about how one animal uses its special features to solve a problem. Long ago, Anant and his sister Anika went swimming. They swam all afternoon and became very tired. They were exhausted and climbed onto a large flat rock to rest. Soon they fell asleep. A strange and mysterious thing happened as they slept. The rock beneath them grew and expanded until it reached the clouds. Anant awoke and looked around. "Sister, wake up," he cried in disbelief. "Am I dreaming or are we among the clouds?" Anika rubbed her eyes. "You're not dreaming, brother. This rock has grown while we slept." The children looked around and saw fabulous blue sky and wonderful white clouds. The children were so high, Anika felt dizzy. Anant searched for a way to climb down, but he could not find a path. Anant and Anika started to cry. They felt fear and dismay. Below, the villagers became worried. Where were the children? They searched the forests, meadows, river, and lakes. Then Isha, the village chief, looked around and noticed Hawk sitting on a tree branch. "Hawk, will you help us find Anant and Anika?" he asked. "You have sharp, watchful eyes and strong wings. They are your best features. Please use them to help us find the children." Hawk agreed to help and flew up into the sky. He tilted his head and squinted his eyes at the bright sunlight. When he was near the clouds, he spied the children on the rock. "Don't be afraid," said Hawk. "We will rescue you." Hawk was unable to carry the children down the rock, so he gathered lots of food for them to eat. Then he brought large leaves to keep them warm. Hawk wanted to make sure they were safe and unharmed. Hawk flew down to the village and spoke to Isha. Isha called all the animals together and told them they needed help to get the children down. He asked each animal to use its most special feature to climb the tall rock. Several tried and failed. Mouse's teeth were strong and unique, but they couldn't help her climb up the rock. Bear's huge claws were good for climbing up trees. However, they could not help him scale rocks. Mountain lion's claws were sharp and powerful, but the rock was too slippery and he slid back down. Finally, a tiny voice filled with enthusiasm spoke up and offered to help. "May I try, please? It's me, Tutok, the inchworm." Inchworm showed them all how skillful she was at climbing. Hawk volunteered to carry Inchworm to the top of the rock. Then she could lead Anant and Anika down the giant mountain. Isha agreed to the plan. So Hawk carefully picked up Inchworm in his beak. Together they flew to the top of the rock where the children were waiting. Along the way, Inchworm planned for the trip down. It took almost a week for the three to climb down to the village. Inch by inch, Inchworm led the children carefully down the rocky slope. Every day, Hawk brought food to the children. Every day, he reappeared in the village with news for the villagers. Finally, Inchworm, Anant, and Anika reached the bottom of the rock. Everyone cheered and called Inchworm a hero. It was a glorious, splendid day. "From this day on," said Isha, "I rename the big rock Tutok on Ula, after the brave Inchworm."
All right, let's get into our comprehension strategy for this week. We're going to be talking about visualizing. Now, this is something that we've done before, and you've heard it come up multiple times throughout our reading. When we visualize, we're using our imagination. So you're taking the descriptive words the author is using in the text to picture it in your head. So visualize, when you visualize something, it's just a fancy way of saying imagine it or picture it in your mind.
Visualize. Use colorful words and details to help you visualize or form pictures in your mind. This will help you understand the character's actions and feelings. Find text evidence. You may not be sure how Anant and Anika feel when they wake up. Reread page 183. The details will help you visualize how they feel. Long ago, Anant and his sister Anika went swimming. They swam all afternoon and became very tired. They were exhausted and climbed onto a large, flat rock to rest. Soon they fell asleep. A strange and mysterious thing happened as they slept. The rock beneath them grew and expanded until it reached the clouds. Anant awoke and looked around. "Sister, wake up," he cried in disbelief. "Am I dreaming, or are we among the clouds?" Anika rubbed her eyes. "You're not dreaming, brother. This rock has grown while we slept." The children looked around and saw fabulous blue sky and wonderful white clouds. The children were so high, Anika felt dizzy. Anant searched for a way to climb down, but he could not find a path. Anant and Anika started to cry. They felt fear and dismay. I read that Anika felt dizzy and Anant searched for a way down. He could not find a way down, and they both began to cry. These details help me figure out how scared Anant and Anika felt. Problem and solution. A story's plot has a problem and solution. A problem is something that needs to change or be solved. The solution is how the characters fix the problem. Find text evidence. On page 183, I read that the rock grew and Anant and Anika were stuck on top. This is the problem. I read that the villagers search for the children. Then Isha asks Hawk for help. These are steps to solving the problem. They are in sequence or time order. Graphic organizer. Problem. The children are on top of a tall rock and cannot get down. The villagers look for the children. The villagers ask Hawk for help.
All right, let's discuss our genre for this week. Now, both of our stories have been folk tales. Now, a folk tale is usually a short story. It's from a particular country or culture that's passed down through generations, and there's some kind of lesson that's supposed to be learned from it.
Folk tale. Inchworm's Tale is a folk tale. A folk tale is a short story passed from parents to children in a culture. Usually has a message or teaches a lesson. Find text evidence. I can tell that Inchworm's Tale is a folk tale. I learned about how a great rock got its name. I also learned a lesson. Even small animals can solve big problems. The lesson in a folk tale is sometimes found at the end of the story. It is a message the author thinks is important. Synonyms. Synonyms are words that have the same meaning. In Inchworm's Tale, you may read a word you don't know. Look for its synonym to figure out what it means. Find text evidence. On page 183, I'm not sure what expanded means. I see the word grew in the same sentence. I know that grew means to get bigger. I think grew and expanded are synonyms. They have almost the same meanings. Now I know that expanded means grew bigger. The rock beneath them grew and expanded until it reached the clouds.
All right, that takes us to the end of our language arts notes for this week. Please make sure that you review this video and the notes very carefully. You can always go back to our notes document that can be found in our shared folder. Go over all of the notes as you're working through your packets and your work for this week. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day. Take care, third grade.